Hey folks, this is Riker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include a AAA developer moving to a 4-day work week, World of Warcraft devs removing jokes from the game, striking new evidence in the great Diablo 2 Resurrected face conspiracy, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below. But right before we skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. That leads us into a quick message from our video's sponsor. Tradery is a website that facilitates trading in-game items between players. It's got a great interface where you can easily browse, search, find any item that you want, or list your own item for sale. Let's say I'm looking specifically for the Nagelring unique ring. I just type that straight in, I hit enter, boom, Nagelring pops up and I can see all the different listings. These are different people selling these. Okay, this one's for one pull rune, this one's for a lem rune. Maybe I want to buy this one. You place the offer, he gets a notification, and then you take it from there. But let's say we're just looking for items with magic find on them. Well, I go into filters here and I start typing out magic items. Click better chance of getting magic items. I hit apply filters. And now it's going to filter me while I type in 1 for the minimum value. I hit apply filters, and now every item, the Nagelring appears. Chance guards, those are some gloves we're going to recommend as well. All the items that have magic find on them. So just follow the link in the description below to start looking for or listing your items via Tradery. Let's kick things off with some uplifting news. We're always hearing about crunch or bad working conditions for game developers, so here's a story that bucks that trend. Eidos Montreal, the developer of and upcoming has announced that its 2 studios will be shifting to a 4-day work week with Fridays off for everybody, in addition to weekends. Naturally, you'd think this would mean 4 days of 10 hours each, so still 40 hours of work just squeezed into fewer days. But nope, it's 32 hours of work. So next you'd assume since work hours are being reduced by 20%, salaries will also be reduced by 20%. Nope, no change to salaries. Okay, so next you'll say, well, now they don't count as full-time employees, so they'll lose all their benefits like insurance, and just stop it. Stop with the cynicism. There's no catch. The company will make this shift over the next few weeks, and studio head David Anfossi said, quote, "The idea is not to condense the working hours into 4 days, but rather to review our ways of doing things and our quality time invested, with the aim of working better. Above all, we want to increase the productivity and well-being of our employees. Concretely, we want to reduce the time at work, but increase the quality of this time invested, whether it's on a team basis or for the studio as a whole. A promising right balance for everything. We want a real collaborative aspect so that the teams contribute to the transition, each one working to define the parameters and criteria for success for the organization of work and deadlines. We hope that this will eliminate unnecessary time and build on efficiency. For example, by reducing internal meetings from 1 hour to 30 minutes. I'm sure a lot of you from any job, anywhere, love the sound of reducing meeting times from 1 hour to 30 minutes. You know, you hear about experiments done in Sweden with a 32-hour work week. France has had a 35-hour work week for, 2 decades now? And they seem to have promising results. The theory is that you can actually increase productivity by decreasing working hours, depending on the kind of job, because happier, healthier, and better rested employees will output better work. For example, someone who's tired and has already worked for 10 hours that day, he might take an hour to do a task that a rested employee might be able to do in 30 minutes. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this. Will Eidos reverse this decision at some point if they see this experiment isn't going as planned? Or will it prove to be successful and we'll see this spread to other companies? Time will tell. In our next story, the World of Warcraft developers have begun a crusade against cringe. In WoW, players can type /joke or /flirt to have their characters speak a random voice line that is either a joke or a funny pickup line. Well, now that all the boomers have retired from Blizzard, the zoomers have moved in, and they do not appreciate the dad jokes of their predecessors one bit. So they are stripping them out of the game on the 9.1.5 PTR. We're gonna lose gems like...
Oh, I'm having a wardrobe malfunction. Oh, there's my hammer.
In seriousness, they seem to have removed all the jokes and flirts that were the slightest bit suggestive or could remotely have been seen as insulting to marginalized peoples. And just as a reminder, the WoW devs have expressed that they are making these changes voluntarily. They're not being forced to do this due to orders on high. Many employees have actually taken to Twitter using their personal Twitter accounts to reinforce this notion that this is their decision. If you look through all the lines that have been removed, the majority really do seem to be suggestive lines. And I do find it a little funny that war, genocide, the slaughter of countless innocents, all that can stay in the game. But this has to go.
When we arrived here, I lost many jewels that had been in my family for generations. If you could get your hands on my family jewels, I would be deeply appreciative.
Come on, that was a quality dad joke. In other news, the last Epoch devs have posted another update, talking about what their next patch will bring, which is slated for launch later this year. The patch will include a rework to the Druid, including a new shapeshifting form, new transform mechanics, including a new resource system, support for multi-form builds, and more. We also got a teaser of reworked werebear gameplay. The next patch will also bring major changes to crafting. The devs want to preserve an element of randomization, but that randomization will no longer come in the form of an item suddenly fracturing. The visuals will continue to be improved in the next patch. The previous patch saw an updated model added for the Primalist class. Now we'll get a new model for the rest of the characters. A couple new game systems are also slated to be introduced in the coming patch, which I'm looking forward to hearing more about. In Path of Exile news, the devs have released a trio of blog posts leading up towards the release of their next expansion, Scourge, with details on some major balance changes they're making to the game. Now, the last expansion saw a massive difficulty rebalance that was met with some initial controversy. And the changes being discussed now sound like a solid plan to address some of that feedback. In their first blog post, titled Path of Exile 3.16 Balance, Part 1, Flasks and Ailment Mitigation, the devs wrote, quote, "In Path of Exile Scourge, our October 3.16 expansion, we're making a number of changes to improve how characters mitigate ailments, use flasks, and build the defense of their characters." They then laid out the article as a series of problems they've identified along with their intended solutions. Now, 3.15 reworked flasks, which ended up nerfing a player's ability to mitigate ailment effects. So now they're planning to introduce new ways for players to deal with ailments via skills, the passive tree, and items. The rework also made utility flasks sustainable if you had enough character damage and clear speed, but less powerful characters would not be able to sustain those flasks, so they're looking to introduce new modifiers and improve existing modifiers on flasks that could help with sustain. In their second blog post on core character defenses and recovery, they explained how they're doing a major balance pass to improve defenses and recovery for all characters. Quote, "The goal here is to put more power into the core defenses, armor, evasion, and energy shield, to make them the best way to mitigate the kind of damage they are best at preventing, while taking some of that power away from the one-off mechanics that provide a significant defense for too low a cost. While some individual mechanics have been nerfed, this is overall a massive buff to defenses across the board. Previously, there were some very tanky characters, but they were gated behind specific niche mechanics and uniques that were not accessible to everyone. What we're doing here is moving a lot of that power to everyone else, so that core defenses are far more powerful than they were before. We're also making sure that every type of character has plenty of ways to mitigate a much more diverse set of damage types. For example, evasion mitigates attacks well, so we're introducing spell suppression to help evasion builds protect themselves against spells. They also highlighted how it's problematic that dodge is too similar to evasion but far more efficient. So to resolve this, they will remove dodge. Just gone. A whole mechanic, poof. To compensate, they'll buff almost every other form of defense. Now, what exactly was dodge and how did it differ from evasion? Well, dodge is just a straight up chance to avoid being hit, capped at 75%. On the other hand, evasion also grants you a chance to avoid being hit, but your evasion rating is compared to your attacker's accuracy rating. A high accuracy rating has no greater effect against dodge, but it does against evasion. Furthermore, unlike dodge, evasion is entropy based. Now, this is a system they implemented that basically ensures enemies won't get long strings of hits or misses by chance. You know, in real life, if you flip a coin, it's theoretically possible to get heads 20 times in a row. Just like it's possible to dodge 20 times in a row. But with the entropy system, the way it works, it'll make these implausibly lucky or unlucky streaks impossible with evasion. Now, a lot of the changes they're making to the game can create a butterfly effect that requires reevaluating almost everything in the game to ensure nothing breaks. For instance, there's a skill in the game called Resolute Technique, which makes it so that your hits cannot be evaded. Some monsters have this skill, and so characters that rely on evasion as their primary defense, if you take dodge out of the game, well, now this is a huge nerf to them because now they're just gonna die to those enemies with Resolute Technique. It doesn't matter how much you buff evasion if a monster has a mechanic that ignores evasion. And that's why the devs are sharing this so far ahead of release, sharing with the community in order to have time to notice these things and make sure everything is communicated, give players a chance to chime in, point out things. This way it's not figured out 3 days before League launch and it's too late to change. Then the third update, titled Auras, Curses, and Elemental Damage Over Time, may as well have just been titled RIP Aurabots. An Aurabot is a type of support build in PoE that does no damage but stacks auras to tremendously buff its allies. Currently, Aurabots are able to pretty much run every aura in the game. Now, running an aura requires reserving a portion of your mana, but players have ways of reducing how much mana is reserved. With the coming patch, the devs are planning to change mana reservation such that the average player benefits, but Aurabots will no longer be able to run all those auras. Oh, and just to kick the Aurabot while it's down, they'll also be nerfing players' ability to enhance their auras to make them more powerful. The Scourge expansion releases later this month, and we can expect a bunch of teasers leading up to it. On to Diablo news, starting with Diablo 2 Resurrected. A patch went out this week that is said to have resolved the AVX issue that was preventing players with non-AVX supported processors from running the game. So if you couldn't run the game, give it a try now, and let me know in the comments if this patch has or has not fixed your issue. Consoles also got a patch this week, with some of the fixes addressing things that were resolved in last week's PC patches. In other D2R news, it seems since the game's release, a slew of artists have begun posting their work on the game to their ArtStation portfolios. And it seems quite a number of freelancers from around the world helped with D2R. Website Pure Diablo compiled a list of almost 24 ArtStation profiles that they found that had posted D2R artwork, be they 3D renders or concept art. The freelancers often noted that the work they did was done under the art direction of Chris Amaral, who had been with Blizzard since 2006 and left in August of this year, and Crystal Land, who was with Blizzard for 4 years and left in July of this year. And it's a real testament to their art direction that you can take a bunch of freelancers from around the world, they're not in the same office, they're not working together every day, and still have an overall cohesive look to everything. Now, among the findings were the original commissioned models of 4 of the classes: the Druid, the Necromancer, the Sorceress, and, yes, the Amazon, whose face has been a topic of hot debate in the community. Freelance character artist Hossein Diba writes, quote, "Amazon model that I made for Diablo 2 Resurrected while working with Blizzard. Her outfit was done by other artists at Blizzard." And your initial reaction may be, now that's the Amazon that I knew. He also made the Sorceress, who also initially looks different from the in-game version that we are now familiar with. Then freelance character artist Sergei Samuilov was found to have made the Druid and the Necromancer. And if you pay close enough attention, you realize these are exactly the same models that Blizzard used in-game. The hair is polygon for polygon the same. The textures are different, there's some change there. The skin is maybe paler, the hair is definitely redder, but the models are the same. The Necromancer similarly has the exact same model, all those lines on his face are in the same spot. And so you start to wonder, are the Sorceress and the Amazon also the same? Looking at the Sorceress, is it just a difference in texture? And same with the Amazon? Have we just seen the makeup removed and maybe the skin tone altered, but the 3D model is completely the same? These original 3D models that you're seeing, supplied by the artists, these are made with glamour lighting. But the in-game versions have these harsh, dark shadows that are completely unflattering. The campfire cinematic shot has a different cast of light that gave the impression of changes to the face, but was it really just a lighting change? It's not the most flattering lighting because it's kind of coming from underneath, but at least it's flatter and not making as many harsh black shadows. What would these models look like if they had the same glamour lighting treatment as what we see from the freelancers? Now, Hossein Diba provided the non-textured model of the Amazon as well, and looking at that, compared to the in-game model, it looks quite similar in fact. If any changes were made to this model, it doesn't seem like they're drastic. Again, maybe we're seeing a change to the textures, but other than that, it seems the major culprit here is really the difference between glamour lighting and horror lighting. And lastly, in Diablo 4 news, the Q3 quarterly update has released and it's all about sound design. The next quarterly update in December will be about endgame systems. We also learned in this update that Diablo 4's new game director is Joe Shelley, who was previously lead game designer. We fully discussed this in our video covering the update, do be sure to check that out. And before we finish, in some late breaking news, we have an update on the Activision Blizzard lawsuit situation. We last reported that Activision Blizzard and the EEOC, that is the US's Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, had reached an $18 million settlement. However, this week, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, the DFEH, has filed a motion to intervene to stop this settlement from going through. Now, it was the DFEH investigation that first made the big headlines a couple months ago, and they're claiming that this settlement will cause irreparable damage to their case against Activision Blizzard. Because as part of the settlement, Activision Blizzard will be able to remove any allegations of sexual harassment from the personnel files of settlement claimants. And the DFEH is saying, well, that's destroying evidence for our case. A clause within the settlement currently reads, quote, within 30 days of the date that the EEOC notifies Activision Blizzard of the names on the distribution lists, Activision Blizzard agrees to A. remove from the personnel files of each eligible claimant any references to the allegations related to sexual harassment, pregnancy discrimination, and/or related retaliation, except to the extent that defendants must keep records of the allegations or any eligible claimant's involvement in this charge in order to effectuate this decree, in which case such records must be maintained separately from eligible claimants' personnel files. So the DFEH is saying, quote, DFEH's pending enforcement action against Activision Blizzard will be harmed by uninformed waivers that the proposed decree makes conditional for victims to obtain relief. The proposed consent decree also contains provisions sanctioning the effective destruction and/or tampering of evidence critical to the DFEH's case, such as personnel files and other documents referencing sexual harassment, retaliation, and discrimination.
Oh, there's me hammer.
Because that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we discuss how Activision Blizzard paid $18 million to make a lawsuit go away. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Rikers Raiders for more gaming content.